handle the truth.
Welcome to Drive at 5 Live. Grab yourself a cup of coffee or water or beverage of choice, and let's have a little chat. I got a question for you today. Has Joe Biden convincingly, decidedly, and like the true champion that he is, finally taken the title of worst president away from Jimmy Carter and claimed it unto himself? Well, I rather think he has, and some of us called it before he ever assumed the Oval Office. Now, of course, there were people who just wanted, quote, Orange Man gone. We can't have these mean tweets, and look at he can't save us from the virus. And of course, we know that Joe Biden was selected for the position that he now holds. And he wasn't selected because he was going to be a great, inspiring leader. No, nay. He is what he is. Someone that very much has, I don't know if you want to call it early onset Alzheimer's. I'm not a doctor, nor do I play one on television. Definitely signs of dementia. Definite mental, cognitive issues going on there. He is in absolute mental and health decline, which is exactly why the establishment wanted him. They have an empty suit, a puppet that they can simply roll out there. If they can pump enough Prevagen into him to make him sound reasonably cognitive during a 5 or 10 minute press briefing, and with a little help, they can feed him answers to questions if he's listening and able to pay attention and process. Why do I hear voices in my head? So he becomes really the perfect candidate to further their agenda and what they want to do, because he really doesn't have an idea or an aspiration of his own. So on that level, it made him perfect. But he is a train wreck and a disaster. They know that. They don't really know how to rid themselves of him. And I dealt with this yesterday on my radio show, and I really feel like I needed to hit this in a little bit more depth and detail again today. Sager and Jetty at Breaking Points. He co-hosts with Crystal Ball. Now, Crystal Ball is absolutely a lefty. She's proud of it. She and Sager are supposed to be a point counterpoint. He is supposed to be, kind of a represent a conservative ideology. Yeah, he really doesn't. I mean, their program is based out of Washington, D.C. They're right in the heart of the swamp, and you can't be surrounded by all that and not let it get on you. So, Sager really isn't a conservative, libertarian, but he has got some ideas where he is spot on. He has been pretty much spot on about things regarding viral mandates, etc. And now he's been asking the question, who's the worst president, Jimmy Carter or Joe Biden? And he did quite a lengthy commentary on this the other day, and I want to take about 2 minutes of it. I want to show it right now, and then I want to break it down.
Right now, the U.S. Consumer Sentiment Index is at the lowest point since they began measuring in the 1950s, coming in at 50.2. The last time that conditions were that low, you guessed it, 1979 and the early 1980s, right at the nadir of Jimmy Carter's presidency. Inflation is similar, with the highest prices today seen since 1979, exactly when Jimmy Carter was president. Crude oil experienced a similar supply shock under Jimmy Carter following the Iranian Revolution. Iran at the time was the second largest producer of oil in the world, and during the hostage crisis, we instituted an embargo, which caused massive pain at the pump here in the United States. It got so bad, gas lines and rationing happening. Our way of avoiding that today is just lift all controls and actually let the price go as high as possible. The theory being, if price gets high, enough people won't drive. Beyond the circumstances of even the political conditions, what really unites the two men is their inability to meet the moment and inspire creative thinking. Consider this. I read through the entire Jimmy Carter Crisis of Confidence speech, where he laid out his plan in 1979 to lower gas prices and to ease the pain of the American people. Here's what he came up with. Number one, the same reason that we had the problem in 1979 was that Americans had lost their way and they were consuming too much stuff. That's what he led with. He then announced a plan, and I'm not kidding you, to raise the price of oil so that people would use less of it. And at the same time, Carter raised prices at the pump. He extolled the virtues of, quote, alternative sources of energy, like, quote, gasohol and solar power. To bolster his ambitious plan, Carter proposed a windfall tax on oil companies. Now, your ears must be ringing, because all three of those things are what the Biden administration is trying to do today. It was rejected in 1979, and it should be rejected today because it's not actually a feasible plan for reasons that we've gone over here ad nauseum. And the reason I think Biden is worse than Carter is, look, to be fair, Carter was at least facing novel problems that had not been seen in his lifetime. That is not an excuse that Biden has, and he should have still have met the moment, certainly. But Biden is so old, he was actually a sitting U.S. senator and involved at the time of the 79 crisis. He probably watched that speech, and he has not updated policy since then. That's a failure that makes him worse.
It's interesting to note back in 1976 that when Jimmy Carter was running, there were a lot of Democrats running. It was a pretty packed field, and nobody had really broken out and captured the American people. Then Senator Joe Biden, I think he was 33 at the time. Senator Joe Biden, that's how long this guy's been in the swamp. Senator Joe Biden was the first Democrat to officially endorse Jimmy Carter. Wasn't that nice? It's almost like then Carter officially passed the baton on to Biden to go on to become the worst president in U.S. history. Now, there are some things in his analysis that Sager is absolutely spot on about. Now, there's some things, though, that he was wrong about. He said that, Jimmy Carter was never really that popular, and nor is Joe Biden. And there is definite truth to that. That, Jimmy Carter was selected by the establishment Democrats because, well, he'll be okay. And, of course, then his presidency became an absolute train wreck, out of control inflation known as the misery index. Remember that, boys and girls? Because I think Joe Biden really wants to just relive those good old days and reintroduce the misery index to us. And all you have to do is listen to him every time he opens his mouth to speak about anything economically. You just absolutely know he is definitely a little kid in the deep end of the pool, and he doesn't even know how to tread water on this stuff anymore. And the Democrats, who actually understand the economy, even they are running for cover and trying desperately to distance themselves from Joe. I guarantee you there aren't any Democrats running for re-election this cycle that want Joe Biden anywhere near them on the campaign trail. They don't want him out there endorsing them. They don't want him out there campaigning with them. The flip of that is Donald Trump, which you were constantly being told is over. He's yesterday's news. The Republicans have moved on from him. It's going to be DeSantis. It's going to be this one. It's going to be that one. Look at all these people that are ready to run again. Blimpy the Whale, Chris Christie, and you've got, what's her name? Nikki Haley, kind of getting ready to throw her hat in the ring. We got, the Rhino from... Rhino governor from Arkansas is going to throw his hat in the ring. And, I wouldn't be surprised if Mitnius Romnius, comes out of the shadows ready to be the savior of the Republican Party. But the truth is, every time there are midterm primaries right now, what does the media focus on? The candidates that Donald Trump endorsed. Now, have they all won their primary races? No, they haven't. The vast majority have. And what you've also seen happen are candidates who were way back in the polls. They got the Trump endorsement, and not only did they come up in the polls, They go on to win. And so we see that Donald Trump still has moxie. I mean, he has still got it. And it's interesting to note that the longer this misery goes on with Joe Biden, and I don't think Democrats have quite gotten there yet mentally. I think some Democratic pundits have, some Democratic poll watchers and strategists have figured this out. And I know even some of the left alternative media online has figured this out. The longer we endure the absolute inept misery thrust on us by the Biden administration, Trump is looking like a rock star. You have people looking around saying, you know, things weren't bad under Trump. I mean, we had cheap gas. The grocery stores were full. There were no supply chain issues. We had freedom. Maybe the guy that we were constantly told was, you know, a xenophobe, a homophobe, a racist, and mean. Maybe, though, he actually knew what he was doing. Maybe we want him back. I'm telling you that's what's happening. And the whole January 6th show that they're doing is not only bombing in the ratings, it is imploding and blowing back on them. And the American people flat don't care. And what they're really angry about is what's not happening right now, and the fact that the party in power is absolutely clueless as to how to handle or deal with it. Now, some of it is purposeful. They, you know, Joe Biden said just the other day, why this pain we're feeling at the gas pump, it's good for us because good things come from pain. Like we're all going to switch over to electric cars. Great. I can't afford, you know, $6 a gallon gas, but I can afford a $75,000 electric car with a $25,000 battery in it. You know, these people, they're criminally insane and should never be allowed anywhere near power. But that all said, Joe Biden doesn't have that kind of support among his so-called base, does he? I mean, are there people really who just can't wait to run to the polls and vote again for Joe Biden? But there are for Trump. And the Democrats know on that level they are in deep, deep trouble. But there was something that Sager missed in his analysis, and this is what I wanted to get to. Voting for Jimmy Carter was not just a repudiation of Nixon and Ford. There was something else that happened there that Sager and his historical look back on Jimmy Carter missed. Jimmy Carter was the first national politician to talk about in an interview that he was a, quote, born-again Christian. Bum-ba-dum-bum. Jimmy Carter has been a member of the Southern Baptist Convention for decades. He was a deacon in his church, although he was part of the liberal faction. But there was a fledgling new movement happening in the late 70s under the direction of Jerry Falwell and a few other evangelical leaders, known as the moral majority, and the bigger camp was called the Christian right. Yes, that famous group, the Christian right, evangelicals finding a political voice. And they heard Jimmy Carter say, born-again Christian. That was their cue. Aha, we've got our guy. And it was the born-again Christians who put Jimmy Carter in office. They assumed that because he said he was a born-again Christian and he had professed Jesus as his Savior and that he went to church every Sunday and was a deacon and he read the Bible, that obviously he would govern as a Christian, i.e. he would be pro-life, that he would espouse the morals and the ideals that line up with their biblical values. And you know what he didn't? He didn't do any of those things. And the Christians figured out really quickly, we've been duped. This guy is a liberal. And he got bounced on his keister not only because he was completely and totally inept, because the machine really went hot and heavy against Reagan when Reagan became the Republican nominee in 1980. And I mean, they unleashed on him. Just like they unleashed on Donald Trump. I mean, the media went all in against Reagan. I mean, it was just 24/7. It was just anti-Reagan, fascist, going to get us into war, blah, 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 blah. You know who put Reagan in office? It wasn't just blue-collar Democrats who crossed the political lines like they did for Donald Trump, and they'll do it again. Born-again Christians. Born-again Christians helped put Ronald Reagan in office, and that's when they got their political clout, and they've never let go, and that became the alignment of the conservative movement to the Christian right. So Sager, you got a little bit more homework to do on that to understand what really happened between 1976 and 1980. It wasn't just that Jimmy Carter was such an abysmal failure. And you're right. Neither he nor Joe Biden know how to step up to a moment and inspire people and get us through it. You are 100% right on that. Chris Wallace, formerly at Faux Pas News, formerly known as Fox News, when he made the jump from Fox News over to CNN Online, what was it called, CNN Plus? He was going to have a new show over there because he was ready to break new territory. Yeah, because young people, which make up the vast majority of the online audience, they were just jumping up and down for wrinkly old Chris Wallace to have a show online. Makes the jump over there, and the entire platform gets unplugged and deplatformed in less than a month. Sucks to be Chris Wallace. But Chris Wallace, after the inaugural address given by Dementia Joe, I remember when he came on the air, when the speech was over, and almost with tears in his eyes, he said, I've covered a lot of these, and I am telling you that Joe Biden's inaugural address, unlike his predecessor, a little parting shot at Trump, was inspirational. It's right up there with John F. Kennedy. Ask not what your country can do for you, but ask what you can do for your country. Ronald Reagan, a shining city on a hill. Joe Biden's inaugural address wasn't awe-inspiring or inspirational. It was a miracle, number one, he could actually get through it. But nobody really believed this guy was going to be all that awe-inspiring. He got the gig because he was the establishment guy. There were certainly sharper and more charismatic candidates running for the primary to get the nomination. Joe was the establishment pick because Joe would do what he's told. And Joe would give in to the military-industrial complex. And you got places like Ukraine that, he was going to give them payback for all of the pay he got. The push was on to force this proxy war with Russia, Ukraine that we're in the middle of. And, Ukraine, when they're done being their useful idiots and enough wealth has transferred hands into the right hands, we'll let Ukraine twist in the wind despite the fact we were the one that put Zelensky up into provoking it to begin with. And that's an assessment of the Joe Obama-Biden years. But I can tell you this, the tide is definitely turning. And keep an eye on these midterms. Keep an eye on what's happening. And I promise you, I really do believe this. Help is on the way. And if not, help is on the way.